Hey everyone, Michelle Seidling here with another episode of Food Experience Unplugged. Today we'll explore gout, painful inflammation of the joints, and how wellness modifications can manage and help you overcome that and live your life to the fullest. Here to help us do that is Spiro Koulouris, author of Gout and You, the Ultimate Gout Diet and Cookbook. This podcast is available on multiple platforms, including YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and others. Please be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to be informed as new episodes become available. If you enjoyed today's episode or any of our episodes, please rate and review the podcast on your favorite platform. As always, check out our website at foodexperienceunplugged.com for some resources as you begin your health journey. Spiro Koulouris, welcome to Food Experience Unplugged.
Thank you for having me, Michelle. Glad to be here.
We are so happy to have you as an expert on gout. And we don't talk a lot about that. So this is a fantastic opportunity to understand it a little bit more and how it affects us and what we can do to avoid it if possible.
Exactly.
Well, first, will you take a moment to introduce yourself and what brought you to this point? Why have you gone in the direction of gout?
Okay, so I'm a gout patient. So I've been suffering with gout since the age of 26. When I got my first gout attack, I was overweight by about 50 pounds. I used to drink a lot because I was in my 20s. So I used to go out a lot with friends at the bars, right? And one night I was drinking a lot of Jack Daniels and Cokes, playing some pool with some friends, and then I went home to sleep. And I remember around 3 a.m. I got struck with a painful gout attack. It struck the big toe, so it was very hot and inflamed, and the pain was so strong that not even a bed sheet can be on it. That's how painful it was. So I basically limped to the doctor's office the next day to check it out, and right away he diagnosed me with gout. And I'm like, "What is gout? I never heard of gout." He goes, "It's something you have for life." I'm like, "Really?" And I didn't believe him at first. I was in denial. Went to do blood work. And sure enough, my uric acid levels were very high, over the safe limit, and that's what caused my gout attack. So basically, I remember for about 3 weeks, I was on crutches because then after a week, it hit my knee as well. So not only did the big toe get struck, also my knee. So lots of inflammation. So I took medication to remove the inflammation, and then I was slowly able to walk again. And then I was prescribed the medication that all gout sufferers usually take, which is called allopurinol, which regulates uric acid levels and makes sure to keep it at the healthy range. And then I started doing a lot of research about gout online, and I couldn't find any good patient information. It was mostly studies from scientists and doctors. So I decided to research those studies, dive deeper into them, see what they're about, and I decided to start my blog, which is goutandyou.com. Where I write about gout in greater detail. I mostly talk about dieting from the studies that I've read in the past of what foods you should eat and what foods you should avoid if you suffer from gout. And gout is something that affects about 2 to 4% of the general population. And it is growing, unfortunately, even with young folks, because a lot of college kids will be drinking a lot, and a lot of them get diagnosed with gout at an early age, usually in the early 20s. So it's a disease that could be avoided with diet and proper lifestyle changes and so on. So I decided to write about what foods to avoid, which foods to eat, lifestyle, the importance of maintaining your ideal weight, gout treatments that are out there, and so on. And that's pretty much it. I have also authored a book on gout, which is Gout and You, the Ultimate Gout Diet and Cookbook, which you can find on Amazon. And that dives deep into the ideal gout diet, which I advocate a lot, which is basically to consume 80% of your daily calories as complex carbohydrates, such as fresh vegetables, fruits, 100% whole grain breads, 100% whole grain rices and pastas, 10% protein, as in lean meats, lean turkey, think of lean chicken breast, lean beef if you have to, fish, no seafood, no pork, no processed meats, very dangerous for a gout sufferer. And then the final 10% basically as fat. So think of yogurt, milk, cheese, eggs, butter, and so on. So the dangerous part for gout sufferers in their diet is animal-based foods. So the more you consume of that, the more the kidneys work harder to break down the purines. Purines are basically chemical compound that are in all foods, but are mostly found in meats, processed foods, alcohol, which basically makes the kidneys work harder to break down. So they work harder, and everybody produces uric acid in their body. So uh, when you have a healthy kidney and you properly your kidneys properly excrete the uric acid via the urine, you have no issues. But if you produce too much uric acid and it's not properly excreted by the kidneys via the urine, the uric acid crystallizes in the joints usually. So usually the big toe about 50% of the time, but there's other joints it could strike as well, like the elbow, the knee, the ankle, the fingers, and that's how you get a gout attack. And that's affecting more and more people. Usually 50 and over is the higher risk group. I would say as you get older, the more higher risk you are of developing gout. But it's something that you can manage with diet. Once you get it and you're diagnosed, if you lose the weight and you eat properly and change your lifestyle habits, you can manage it for the rest of your life and have a good quality life.
Okay. Now you mentioned you got it early on, and several people get that. Is that you mentioned 50 and older though? So is it just kind of
The
an
majority,
anomaly
yeah,
that
yeah, it's
younger people
rarer.
get it?
Yeah, you're a lower risk, but the young groups are increasing from what I read in studies of developing gout. But usually it's 50 and over. Usually the majority of people, I would say three quarters of the people that get gout will get it over the age of 50. In my case, my doctor said it's a bit hereditary or genetic, I would say, because I was born with a little bit of thalassemia minor, which is a minor blood disorder, but it's very, very little. But that could be the root cause of me developing gout at such a young age.
Mm,
So that could be, basically a theory. We can't obviously prove that, but that's what my doctor stated in my case. But I remember I was overweight. So being overweight puts you at a higher risk of developing gout. Drinking a lot of alcohol puts you at a higher risk of developing gout. Eating a lot of fried food and junk food and burgers and lots of red meat puts you at a higher risk of developing gout. So that's why I'm here. I basically want to tell people like you have to change your dietary habits, your lifestyle, and avoid this terrible disease. And it's too bad because in the Western world we eat a lot of meat, right? We eat a lot of red meat and so on, and it's been known that causes gout and other diseases.
good point. Now, you mentioned with gout, you were told, hey, you're going to have this the rest of your life. Is that common with gout? Once you have it, you've got it for life?
Yes, for the majority it is. I do have folks that write in and will tell me, hey, I beat gout naturally. I don't take my medication anymore. And I'll tell you, great, but it doesn't mean you won't get another gout attack later on in life. So there is something known in the gout community that patients, about 50% of them will not take their medication because once you feel great, right, you're like, after a few months, you're like, I don't need this medication anymore. I don't think I'll get another gout attack. And then after a year, you'll get one and maybe some more. So it's known that gout sufferers don't like to take their medication and they always get in trouble. I'll say, great, if you want to stop your medication, work with your doctor, work with a dietitian, and measure uric acid levels frequently, at least 2, 3 times a year, so you make sure you don't get another gout attack if you want to go the holistic way. That's what I would
Mm,
advise.
okay. Now, for your own experiences, have you gone with that holistic aspect of it?
Yes, yes, but I used to take 300 milligrams of allopurinol daily, and with my change in diet, lifestyle, exercise, maintaining an ideal weight, I reduced it to 100 milligrams a day. So it is
Mm,
positive, and it is good for my health, obviously. So that's why I advocate. Once you have gout, you really want to change your habits because if you don't, and you just say I'm just going to take the medication and eat whatever I want for the rest of my life, you are at a higher risk of developing other diseases like type 2 diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, heart disease. So it's only going to get worse, and your medication will only increase. Your doctor will be increasing that allopurinol, and that's not good for you either. So it's basically a warning. Once you're diagnosed, it's not the end of the world. Start losing the weight, change your dietary habits, and you can live a good quality, healthy life.
okay. So with your doctor's help, I mean, normally patients are on even a lower dose of medication, but also mainly doing these lifestyle adjustments.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I advise. Doctors usually will not promote changing your diet or making lifestyle changes. So that's where I come in and provide that advice. And basically, um, we're a community, goutinu.com. So everybody, you could comment on your experiences. I'm there to help, provide information. I answer all the emails, usually within 24 hours, and so on.
Okay, fantastic. Now, when somebody is diagnosed with gout, how long is that process where they can really get it under control? I mean, perhaps it depends
Yeah.
on the person, but
With medication, you're saying?
whether it's medication, whether it's lifestyle, just is there kind of is it something that takes a few years to get under control, or
No,
you have
really
to?
quick with medication. I mean, you won't feel any symptoms maybe in a couple of weeks, 2, 3 weeks with medication.
Okay.
So the medication works quickly. Usually, when you get a gout attack, doctors will prescribe you either colchicine or NSAIDs, which are basically non-steroid creams or injections and so on to get rid of that pain and inflammation. And once it's gone within a week or two, you start the allopurinol, and then you're perfectly fine after that. So it's a quick process. Whereas if you take the holistic way, it's probably going to take longer. And with the holistic way, you just don't want to get repeated gout attacks, because if you do, that's going to be a problem. You could get bone erosion. You could get issues with your bones and those joints down the road. If it's really bad, you can even get amputation. So be very
Mm,
careful. Make sure you follow your doctor's advice, and make sure you change your diet and lifestyle. That's very important. It's key.
mm, okay. Now, when you were first diagnosed with it and suffering with it, what was your mindset in terms of being able to overcome this?
Yeah, it was difficult. A lot of gout sufferers will get depressed. A lot of friends or family will make fun of you sometimes because it's like a joke for many. Because gout has a bad stigma. Usually, it's associated with eating a lot of red meat or drinking a lot of alcohol. The history of gout comes mostly from kings and queens in England back in the mid centuries. They were the ones prone to get gout at that time. And why was that? Because they would have access to rich foods, lots of meats, alcohol, uh, desserts, and so on. Whereas the peasants would eat off the farm, right? They would basically eat complex carbohydrates, whatever they would grow on the land. So that stigma has stuck with kings and queens and the aristocrats of that time. And it's a stigma to this day. Basically, if you get gout, you probably eat too many burgers or drink a lot of alcohol. So it does hit you psychologically, um, and being in crutches as well, limping around, especially if you have a job where it's manual labor and you have to walk, right? That's gonna basically put you in a disability. You have to stay home. So it's very important to get support from family, from friends as much as possible during those tough times. I would say, but it definitely hits the mindset of many. But you need to fight through it, change. It's basically the warning that you have to change your diet and lifestyle and move forward. Because if not, it's only going to get worse for you. It could potentially get worse for you, right?
Mm, absolutely. So you were on board with it, but you sounds like you struggled a little bit as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So when in order to make those lifestyle modifications, so did you mainly do a lot of research on your own then?
Yes, correct. Yeah. So I did a lot of research on my own. I published it on gout.com. And I lost the weight. I go to the gym 3, 4 times a week. Um, I only drink water, herbal teas, or coffee. Very little alcohol. I'll save the alcohol for a special occasion. If I go to a birthday party, a restaurant, I'll have a glass or two of red wine with my meal. Maybe in the summer, I'll have a bit of whiskey from time to time. And that's about it. I keep it very moderate. My meat consumption has dropped. I eat mostly complex carbohydrates. No more processed foods. Try and eat as fresh as possible.
Okay. Yeah, so how was that making those types of modifications? Was it a
It takes
struggle? Was it
time.
pretty
Yeah, it's a
easy?
struggle in the beginning, it's going to be a struggle for most people out there because food is also very psychological, right? It hits the pleasure parts of the brain, especially sugar, right? So it's not gonna you're not gonna change overnight. What I recommend is maybe keep a diary of what you eat and review that diary every week and see where you're making mistakes and what you're not eating properly, and try to incorporate always better foods over time. You are going to fail, and failure is not a problem. You learn from it, right? As long as you learn from it and improve. Meaning, one night you could be somewhere and they're serving nothing but hamburgers and fries and Coca Cola, and you could get in trouble. But try and avoid those situations if you can. If there's something else there, replace those fries with a salad, right? Have a burger with your salad. There's ways to work about it, but um, what I recommend is staying focused. It might take a few months. It took a long time for myself, and you'll notice over time your taste buds will also change. So you'll prefer the healthier foods compared to the bad foods over time, and you're going to crave them more, and you'll be eating better and feeling better, and your life will change.
Okay. Now, with regard to, those with whom you associate, your family members, with friends, how does that interaction or that influence help or hinder you in terms of managing your gout?
Um, I would say it's not an issue anymore with friends or family. They don't influence me. Sometimes friends or family might look at you weird because you say no to something you say yes to in the past, right? But I mean, once they learn that you've changed for the better, they'll support you and your decisions of what to consume and so on. So for my personal situation, I would say it's not that big of an issue now with friends and family.
Mm, okay. So your family or friends that they're pretty supportive in
Yeah,
your focus on that.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's fantastic. Uh, now, what resources have you found most valuable? You said you did or continue to do a lot of your own research. What resources do you find most valuable in managing your gout?
Um, the best studies out there are from gout specialist named Han Choi out of Boston General Hospital, I believe. And they did a lot of long term dietary studies with folks. And that's where you see which foods raise uric acid levels from their tests and which ones don't. And basically, it's all there on my website on goutandyou.com if you want to, anybody wants to dive in deeper. Again, it's basically a diet consisting mostly of complex carbohydrates that helps gout sufferers, and limiting protein. And if you could avoid protein completely, I mean, meat protein, animal based protein, even better for you. If you want to be vegetarian, go ahead. But I do give that 10% allowance for somebody that likes meat. Like myself, I'll like to have some lean chicken breast or even a lean piece of steak from time to time, but limit how much you're going to eat. Limit it to 4 6 ounces in one day, and that's it. So, and then the other parts of the studies go into sugar. Sugar is another offensive food for gout sufferers, especially high fructose corn syrup. That is very offensive, and that raises uric acid levels. And then seafood as well: lobster, shrimp, quails, crabs, and so on. Very dangerous for gout sufferers. It really spikes uric acid levels are really high. So a lot of those studies from the 80s, 90s, 2000s are really helpful to understand what affects gout and get you in trouble, basically, and what you need to do
Mm.
to live healthier.
Oh, absolutely. So, have you done any of your own studies or other things in terms of researching this?
Only surveys with my audience. I've done some surveys. Top five gout attacks usually come out as alcohol number one, red meat number two, seafood number three, uh, high fructose corn syrup sugars number four, and number five, I believe, processed meats. So think of cold cuts, bacon, hot dogs. Uh, that's meat you want to avoid. It really spikes uric acid levels.
Mm, okay. Okay. Now, how does with all of your education and things of that nature, um, kind of going forward, how do people what's that first step when either the doctor tells you you've got gout or you've got some kind of attack? in general is that first step or set of steps to take to get that under control?
Well, medically speaking, it'll be medication, obviously. Holistically, it'll be changing your diet immediately. So I would advise on the onset of a gout attack, drink only, lots of water and only water. Because by drinking more and more water, you flush out excess uric acid via the
Mm,
urine. So that's going to help. And after that, slowly start incorporating the ideal gout diet that I discuss on my website and my book, which is eating mostly complex carbohydrates, fresh vegetables, beans as protein instead of meat. Trying to incorporate that slowly, and limit the protein, the animal-based protein, the meats, and so on, and the fat from animal, which is yogurts, cheeses, and so on, milk, and so on. Um, and if you like alcohol, because a lot of gout sufferers get their gout attacks due to alcohol, you have to limit the alcoholic intake. That's going to happen gradually. Obviously, some people really like their alcohol, so I would say if you're drinking too much, you're going to have to work on it and try and cut back as much as you can.
mm, okay. So, in addition to those food modifications, are there other aspects of wellness that have worked for you, or others that you've seen in the
Exercise.
research?
Yeah, I would say exercise. Exercise to maintain your ideal weight and
Okay.
also to strengthen the joints. Because when you get gout attacks in the joints, it affects them and weakens them. So when you exercise, if you could do some strength training, incorporate some weights, that's going to help to rebuild cartilage, maybe where it has been broken down on your foot over time through numerous gout attacks. So you want to exercise. And if you don't like to exercise, I would say get a Fitbit and at least walk every day. If you can do 10,000 steps, that would be ideal. Anything to keep fit. And also, walking does help strengthen the joints as well, all over the body. Even doctors that see patients that have rheumatoid arthritis would recommend walking. So keep moving somehow, because the more you sit down and you don't move, the more issues you'll have with your gout. It will only get worse over time.
Okay. Now, with that inflammation and in that aspect of it, is it related at all with arthritis or with other joint ailments?
Yes. So gout is probably, yeah, I believe is the most prevalent condition in the arthritis family.
Okay.
Most people suffer from gout than the other type of other forms of arthritis, like rheumatoid arthritis or osteoarthritis, and so on, or psoriasis. But all those other arthritic conditions, when you suffer from gout, you're at a higher risk of developing one or more down the road. So, again, my message is it's a warning sign. You got to change your lifestyle, your dietary habits, because you want to avoid these other high risk conditions that you're more prone to. Because now you unfortunately suffer from gout, so be careful.
Okay. So not only can you get gout again in the future, but you're
Hmm.
also at risk for the other types of arthritis.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Okay. Very interesting.
And
Now,
also, another thing to point out, I've seen studies from rheumatoid arthritis and other arthritic conditions, and they always recommend similar diets to what I advocate about gout. So it's in the same family, and the same foods will get you in trouble when it comes to arthritis in general. So
mm,
you want to avoid, again, the high meat intake, the sugars, and the processed foods.
sure, absolutely. Oh my goodness. So with you've got the foods, you've got the exercise, and you mentioned that sometimes it's hereditary. So if someone in the family has gout, so is there by definition a higher chance that you'll
They
get it?
say that, but I'll say if your father, usually the children will follow what the parents eat, right? They've been accustomed to certain meals and they continue. When they move out and they get married, they continue with those type of eating habits. So I would say it's mostly that case when it comes to genetics. To say that somebody had gout and you're at a higher risk, there's not really much in the genetic code that states that yet, that I've seen through the studies. But because usually gout is something that happens later in life, and then your genetic code gets altered
Mm,
when it comes to that.
okay. So it not only just inflames your joints, but it's changing your genetic makeup?
Yeah, usually after you get gout, it changes a little bit. I have an article about it on gout and genetics. You could read on. I don't remember exactly the details, but there's a genetic code that changes or so. But there's no proof that if your father had that or your mom that you're born with it. There's no link to that as of yet.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Fantastic. Wow. So, to for those struggling with it, is it primarily is the sticking point just not wanting to make the food behavior changes?
Yes, yes. So if you don't, I mean, unfortunately, you could be at a higher risk of developing another disease, like I mentioned before. You're at risk of getting an increase in your allopurinol over time because your uric acid levels will increase over time because you're not changing your diet, you're continuing your old ways, whatever those unhealthy habits were. So, yeah, it's very important to make those changes. If not, it's either going to be higher medication or other diseases that you're at higher risk of developing down the road.
Okay. So because of that higher uric acid, it's creating other issues in the body in addition to
Yes,
the
correct.
gout.
Yeah, you could have kidney disease. That's another high risk issue that a lot of gout sufferers develop down the road is problems with their kidneys because that's where uric acid is basically excreted and broken down and developed. So the kidneys are very important to keep healthy. And that's why you have to go on a diet that's kidney friendly, basically. Like meat takes about 90 hours to be broken down by your kidneys, whereas vegetables can burn in about less than 10 hours. So they burn clean in the body. So that's a big
Mhm.
difference.
Okay. Okay. Now, have you, with all of the modifications that you've made, do you find that you still have to kind of check in with how you're doing with that, or make any additional modifications?
Yeah, well, you have to do your as a gout sufferer. I do recommend you do an annual blood test to check your uric acid levels every year. So
Mm,
make sure you talk to your doctor about it every year. Go do your blood work, check your kidney levels, make sure they're healthy, and so on. And any other tests that's closely related to gout. If you have your insulin, because you could be at a high risk of developing type 2 diabetes as well, and there are three conditions. So your doctor will check all those points on the form and verify them each year with you and discuss that with you.
okay. Okay, fantastic. Oh, well, Spiro, you are a wealth of knowledge with regard to
Thank
this.
you.
I'm glad that you got a handle on it with your own health and just
Thank you.
really paying it forward with others as well. Um, how can people get in contact with you?
Yeah, well, if they have any questions, they could visit our website at goutanu.com. You could just go and contact us. The email address is info@goutanu.com. I answer all emails within 24 hours. So if you have any questions about gout or about any friend or relative that has gout, I'm here to help you. And I'll make sure to answer your email.
Okay, fantastic. Well, as we wrap up, and any final thoughts on gout or management or going forward?
Like I said, hop onto my website. You'll find tons of information. You can check out my book as well. And the importance is once you get it, it's important to make changes quickly so you don't deteriorate over time. That's
Mm,
the best advice I can give to any gout sufferer is you got to take action. It won't be easy at first to change your lifestyle and change your eating habits, but it can definitely be done. And if you need help, maybe hire a coach, a dietitian, or a health coach.
fantastic. Thank you so much for being here today, Spiro. We appreciate
Thank you,
all that you
Michelle.
do and continue to do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey everyone, Michelle Seidling here at Food Experience Unplugged. Are you enjoying the Food Experience Unplugged podcast and are ready to ramp it up a level? Then it's time to go premium. With a premium podcast membership, in addition to all the great podcast episodes you know and love, you'll receive additional bonus content and exclusive interviews from many of our podcast guests. You'll receive a live Q&A access each month where I'll address questions pertaining to holistic health and how you can start your journey. You'll also receive weekly shorter video clips with information on tips, tricks, and strategies to get started, to build consistent habits, and to take charge of your health. Go premium today. I'll see you there.